This is Q.I.Q, the question in question. Brought to you by TherapyBites Art Lab. Here to take a bite out of modern-day pseudo-psychological psycho-malarkey. Now entering the Art Lab studio, today's T-Ballers, a collection of fellow strugglers, confronting personal challenges, navigating precarious relationships, and tackling trauma. Humans like each of us, juggling difficult human emotions, each here with unique life experiences, lived stories, and questions we'll bite into that just might help you too. And now, entering the Art Lab studio for the 9,880th time is the host of TherapyBites Q.i.Q, Doc Heath.
Hey, gang, welcome to Q.i.Q. And let me see if, oh, yeah, good, I have sound. You know, I've been struggling with sound here lately. I think some of you sound folks out there that give me a thumbs up, or a heads up, rather, if my sound's not coming through. But I think I may have it tackled. Welcome to Q.i.Q. You know how the game is played, but before we get started, a little bit of a riddle. Why did the psychotherapist become a gardener? Because he wanted to get to the root of the problem. Yeah, see, that's a psychotherapy dad joke, and my son just loves those. Not really. I kind of like them. Let's go to the board. Here are categories for this evening. Couch Crumbs quotes, Creature Feature, which is our way of explaining some sometimes difficult to understand psychological concepts. Social Media Smackdown, we take down some of the, well, inaccuracies on social media. Imagine that. Inaccuracies on social media. FFTC is fresh from the therapy couch. Real life stories from real life people who like sharing out their stories to help you. Couch Crumbs is our newsletter, which is coming out tomorrow. Gosh, I still have to get that article done. Our editor, if you're listening, I almost have it finished. I'll get it out to you, I promise, tonight. Nothing like a last minute writer. And our final category there is Neuro, also called Psych Secrets. Have a little bit itch on my nose there. And this question comes from Couch Crumbs Quotes. And the answer is, and I'll put this up on the board, the world leader that said the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. Don't you love a catchy aphorism? Alf was a character on TV from the 80s. Alf, but this is not Alf. This is an aphorism. The world leader that said the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. Anybody with any idea of the proper response to that? We have about 10, 11, 12 seconds to go, and I thank you folks for streaming live with me this evening through, I started to say Instagram. We couldn't get that connected, but we'll work on it. YouTube, Twitter, of course, X, new platform's called X, and Facebook and YouTube. Thank you if you're catching the replay. We appreciate you watching no matter how you watch. And we serve this up anywhere where fine podcasts are served up, and it lives on our YouTube channel. So if you want to, you can follow, subscribe, and you'll get notices of these. Who is Franklin D. Roosevelt? Franklin D., the U.S. president that implied the importance of a positive mindset and overcoming self-doubt for future success. Your success tomorrow and next week is being designed in your mind as we speak. And I have another riddle, by the way. Why did the therapist keep his calendar on the wall behind him? And we'll do that midway in the show. But let's go back to the board and grab our next item here. And it comes from Creature Feature. And I'll put this up on the board. We'll take a short break to give you time to think about the answer, but also that riddle. And if you come up with the answer for the appropriate question, you win 200 Psy coins. And guess what? This is the T-ball triple of the day. So you actually well, 3 times that, 600 Psy coins that you can use to buy merchandise from the TherapyBites store. But we'll be right back after this.
If you are a fellow human struggling with difficult emotions, a fracturing relationship, parenting problem, mental health difficulty, have a psychotherapy from hell story to tell, or a challenging life experience question, and would like to share your story by stepping up to bat as a T-baller, either register by texting Q.i.Q to 1-870-686-4196 and join our Therapy Bites community, or send a postcard with your name, address, phone number, email address, and age to the address on the screen. Therapy Bites, Q.i.Q, P.O. Box 1391, Jonesboro, Arkansas, 72403-1391.
And we really do check that P.O. Box. Thank you guys for sending in your postcards with the very questions that we're reading. That's where we get some of those. But you can also DM me right here on Twitter or whatever social media platform you're using. We always appreciate you reaching out. I'm most easily reached on Twitter. I just tend to check that more often. Let me pull this up on the board. It's been in the chat this whole time. But this is the term for the mistaken belief. We also call that a cognitive distortion. The mistaken belief that we know what others are thinking, even though they haven't told us. Now, think about that for a moment. How would you know what's going on in the brain cells of another human if they haven't told you? What's the best way to know that? Well, ask. And the response for that, I'll put that up on the board just because I already have it in there. And of course, that's called what is mind reading? Mind reading. One of the most devastating things to relationships is, instead of using our words, we try to do this whole 1970s Aquaman thing where we're communicating with the fishes. But trying to communicate as you're communicating with the fishes will send your relationship to sleep with the fishes, if you get my meaning there. Let's go back to the board and we'll get our next item for this evening. And it's going to come from Social Media Smackdown. And oh my goodness, this is a goodie. Something that you may not have heard of. I certainly hadn't heard of it until someone pointed this out to me. And we'll put 60 seconds up on the board. And SML, not SNL, not Saturday Night Live, but SML, Social Media Logic. Now, even having said that, you might be kind of intuiting, understanding what that is. But we have lots of folks that they just take as gospel truth what they read on social media, and people tend to equate their self-worth to number of followers. They equate their self-worth to maybe some troll getting on there and saying something rude, unkind, or nasty. They sometimes get their mental health advice, and I'm on social media. Of course, that's my gig, is mental health advice, but I've got a double doctorate in that. And although I love plumbers and I have plumbers as friends, some folks are plumbers and giving out psychological advice on social media. I love my garbage guys, and I think that'd be a cool job. But I'm a diesel mechanic, but diesel mechanics should not be giving out mental health advice. But what is this called? I'll put that up on the board so you guys can get a better look at it, because I think it warrants a little bit of extra care. Lots of great things on social media, but it's often like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. What is a common myth that needs to be challenged? Because not everything people post on, imagine this, not everything people post on social media is accurate or reflects their real life. And we can get to where we envy the pictures that people post on social media. They might post a picture of a huge fancy house, but they may have photoshopped that. That may not be their house. That may be a house they rented. That may be a B&B. They'll post pictures of a $250,000, $500,000 sports car and say, hey, look at me, how successful I am. And I have a friend that he makes his business renting out those vehicles. You may not have the money to afford one, but you can go to my friend Shelby, and he'd be glad to rent you out. I'm sure he'd probably rent it for an hour. So imagine somebody paying a couple $100 to rent a fancy $250,000 automobile to take a picture and put it on social media and convince you that they're so successful they bought this vehicle when they really just rented it. Back when I was a kid in the 70s, I think it was still in the 80s, they had this, is it live or is it Memorex? Meaning, is it real or is it fake? And there's so much fake stuff on social media, and just falling for that we call social media logic. Let's go back to the board for our next item here. Just be careful out there. It's a wild, wild west in social media. And this comes from fresh from the therapy couch for 400 Psycoins. And yes, again, you can redeem those. You can save them up. And you can cash them in when you get enough to buy something cool from the store. And I'll pop that up there on the board. We'll be right back after this.
If you plan on being in the local area of your podcast player app and would like complimentary tickets to the TherapyBites Q.i.Q Art Lab studio audience, please search TherapyBites on your device and just smash that subscribe button. Your complimentary ticket grants you access to alerts so you'll never miss a show.
And yes, we would love to have you subscribe. And again, and I said I put up on the board. I really put it in the chat, but I'll put it in the board now. This is a common psychological struggle that many people face. I certainly used to face it, sometimes causing them to avoid situations where they may have to speak in front of a group. And what's that called? It's called glossophobia. Glosso meaning to speak, and phobia meaning fear of. So quite literally fear of speaking. But listen, as you could tell, I have kind of tackled public speaking, and you can too. As my dad used to say, what are they going to do? Eat you? No, they're not going to eat you. Believe it or not, your audience wants you to succeed. And so if you're struggling with public speaking, one of the best things you can do is look at the crowd as a crowd of friends that want you to succeed. Because guess what? They really do. And if they don't want you to succeed, well, that's okay. They're not your audience anyway. Let's go back to the board and pick our final item for the evening. It's going to come from Nero, which is also called Psych Secrets. And I will copy and put that in the chat. I think we have one more intermission to go, and we'll be right back.
Premier accommodations for our T-Ball contributors provided electronically by the luxurious Art Lab Studio, overlooking the steaming cesspool of pseudo-psychological social media psychomalarkey, and located in cyberspace on your favorite podcast hosting platform, where we invite you to the most psychomalogically thrilling podcast in town, while you feast on our award-winning psychologically nutritious buffet of TherapyBites cuisine, conscientiously cooked up by your hard-working T-Ball team chefs.
And yes, we just dropped a new episode today, and you can go anywhere podcasts are served and check Therapy Bites. It'll pop up. We'd love to hear you watch. We'd love to hear you watch. Watch quietly. Chew your popcorn with your mouth closed. No, we'd love to have you watch. But let's get to the question here. And I put that question up on the board before I read the answer. The concept that explains how our memory of new information decreases over time if we don't work on retaining it. And by the way, for all you college students out there, this makes it a great study habit to, instead of studying in really big chunks, study incrementally. Study a topic and move on to a next topic. If you're trying to memorize things, memorize it a bite-sized chunk at a time, and a very small bite-sized chunk at a time. And what is that called? Well, the question is, what is the forgetting curve? What is the forgetting curve? And I said I was going to reveal to you the answer to that riddle. Why did the therapist keep his calendar on the wall behind him? Get this, he wanted to stay ahead of his schedule. Another dad psychotherapy joke. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back with a great interview tomorrow with the one and only one half of the twin team, Krasensteins, and I hope that's how you pronounce that, Krasenstein. I'll ask Ed tomorrow. Ed has 1 million followers on Twitter and on X platform, and he will be in the art lab for the Executive Espresso interview, caffeinated conversations with me, Doc Heath, on the X algorithm, monetization, and Web3. Join us then. This program, Q.i.Q, will be back next week on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab Q.i.Q, Doc Heath and T-Ball callers face off against steaming piles of pseudo-psychological psycho-malarkey directly from your favorite social media platforms, or perhaps from the psychotherapy couch of a pill-pushing, emotion-demonizing, bobble-headed, woo-woo clinician who fed their kooky Kool-Aid to you. This is Art Potto speaking. Therapy Bites Q.i.Q is a Dr. I'm a Floyd Knot production. Distributed by the Therapy Bites Art Lab Podcast.